Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to practice the English language, learn about the British accent and culture with me, your host, Michael Lavers. I am super excited for today's episode, and I hope you are as well, because we're talking with Gideon from LetThemTalkTV. And if you're anything like me, you probably have seen Gideon's face pop up on YouTube somewhere. He has quite a popular YouTube channel where he covers a variety of different topics, from specific parts of words to the origins of English and the influences from different cultures. Those are among his recent videos, and many more as well that might interest a language learner, an English learner, or just someone who is interested in languages generally. There's a lot to get from his channel, and this was an episode that we were trying to arrange for quite a few months, but for different reasons it was difficult to get scheduled. Maybe we're both quite busy people, but finally we found some time and we were able to record, and I think it went great. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I know you will as well. It's quite casual, it's quite relaxed, so hopefully you get that vibe from this episode, and we cover quite a few different topics. My idea was to look at some of the topics that interested me from Gideon's YouTube channel and cover some of them kind of randomly in the episode. So I do start by talking a little bit about what it's like to be a YouTuber, and I know Gideon doesn't like that word, but we talk a little bit about that and some videos that maybe have gone really well or have totally failed on his channel. We also talk a little bit about some of the outside influences on the English language from other languages, other cultures, maybe your culture, your country as well. We talk a little bit about American and British English. Is British English slowly turning American? That's one thing we ponder, we question today. We talk about word origins, so some interesting places that words come from that I maybe didn't know and you likely also didn't know. So I think that will be interesting to find out. And then finally, we talk about something called binomials, which are these like phrases or expressions that we use in English that I think are really important to sounding natural, sounding like a fluent, natural English speaker. And we talk about some of these in a fun way towards the end as well. So there is a lot in this episode, both useful and hopefully enjoyable to listen to. Once again, I will put Gideon's links, YouTube channel, and anything else in the description for this episode. So if you want to find out more, please click them and have a look at what Gideon is doing. But for now, I think we'll get right into the episode. If you do find it challenging, there are transcripts available for members up on the website that follow the text as you speak. But either way, hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am very happy to be joined today by Gideon from Let Them Talk TV. Welcome. How are you?
Hi. Hi, Michael. I'm fine, thanks. Thank you for inviting me.
Good. I'm glad you could be
Pleasure
here.
to be here.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad you think so. You may have noticed I was speaking very carefully when I said your channel name, because for me, I don't know why that combination of L and TH is always like a tongue twister for me. So I think I managed it just about. But yes, if people don't know,
you did fairly well. You did fairly well.
if people don't
Big
know,
plus.
you've got quite a big YouTube channel, right? How long have you been doing that now?
Doing it seriously, I think about 8 years. I don't know, time flies.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
I pushed a few, I uploaded a few a few videos before that, but seriously about 8 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think especially with COVID, it probably feels a lot faster than it's gone quite quickly, hasn't it? And I think you've been teaching, I read, for 20 years, is that right? Or something like that?
I guess so. Kind of. My first job really after university was teaching in Spain, but then I took a 15-year break, and I became a computer programmer, a systems developer,
Oh.
and then I went back to it. So, the long story, yeah, I'll just cut a long story short. Yeah, so
Oh,
I've returned
interesting.
to my original profession.
Has that other job, has that played into what you do now at all, since you're online a lot now, I guess?
A little bit, I guess it may surprise some people to hear, but computer programming and teaching English, they have quite a lot in common in a way. If you need to have an analytical mind to to understand a real language and a computer language. There's sort of basis of um, ana- analysis and then explaining it, so they have a lot in common. So I would say in that way, yes, but in other ways, being on YouTube and writing a computer program, no.
Yeah, it's interesting how you kind of get these transferable skills between jobs, but yeah, okay, it's just a hunch I had anyway. But yeah, I'm really curious to ask more about your channel, because I've I never call myself a YouTuber, but I've been uploading for a few years, and it's stressful, but it's fun, and I think with
Yeah.
with your videos, there's a quite a wide appeal, I'd guess, from English learners, but also just even native speakers who might want to know more about the history of the language or some interesting things like that. So, what kind of motivated you to start looking into these topics?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll comment on the earlier thing you said. I don't really like the term YouTuber either. I mean, a lot of people, you're sharing the same platform, but we're doing very different things. So I still consider myself as I don't know, a teacher, an educator, but that this is the platform that I've chosen. And it's true that my first 200 videos or so were just about English teaching, because that's what I'm doing. It was initially, I started the channel really just to promote my language school in Paris, which is recently closed, by the way. But I was had a school, and yeah, needed some content for the website. So that's how I started, and it got really interesting and getting feedback from people online. So I made more videos, um, and it's it's great. And the only problem with that, I don't know if you find this yourself, but if you're an English teacher on YouTube, it's a very crowded space. There are hundreds of very good teachers as well on YouTube, and I thought maybe I need to cut a sort of niche for myself and become a little bit more specialized. One thing I've always been interested in is etymology and the history of English. So I started making one or two videos on those topics, and yeah, they got quite popular, and I love talking about that type of thing. And now I think most of my videos, not all of them, most of them are about that. Really, yeah. I
Yeah,
hope people
yeah,
find them interesting.
yeah. I mean, I was going to say that if you look back for the last, I don't know, year or 2 years or something like that, from what I can see, you do have a niche now. You've kind of maybe, I don't know, accidentally or on purpose. It seems like you're covering a lot of the same topic, which to me fits quite nicely together.
Yeah, I think so. Also, with English language teaching, I mean, I made more than 200 videos on grammar, vocabulary, and I I wouldn't say I was running out of things to say, but I wanted to do something a little bit different as well. I love teaching English, so I just just there aren't many people in this space of looking at the history of English, and I thought that would be interesting, and it covers both bases, because if you are learning English, you can also get a lot out of it if you're learning the history of idioms, because if you're learning English idioms, for example, then if you know the history of it, then it helps you remember it. So, yeah, hope most people are happy. Not everyone.
Well, you can never please anyone
You can't please all the
on
people all the
YouTube,
time.
can you?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of curious because I I don't know, you've got a lot of subscribers at this point, so I'm sure you have an answer for this. Maybe I'll give you two options to make it a bit easier. You can choose which path to
Multiple
take.
choice.
Yes. Have you ever had a video that either kind of completely flopped and didn't like do well like you expected, or one that kind of surprisingly went really viral and everyone saw?
The answer to the first question is yes. The answer to the second question is yes.
Mm.
I'll go to uh, briefly. One of the first when I sort of like the word transition, but when I from teaching just English to talking about the history of English and more sort of general English language topics was during lockdown when I had a lot of free time on my hands, as a lot of people did, and I decided to make a video about a book. I'm just looking up there, it's on my shelf there, about a book I bought from um, a charity shop. If you know Oxfam, if you know those charity shops in my early 20s, and it really inspired me. It's called the Loom of Language, and it talks about how it was written in the 1940s during the war, and it's about how languages are all connected, and how if you want to, you could learn 3 or 4 languages at the same time. Not necessarily recommended, but it shows how the languages are connected, and it gives lists of different vocabularies and how Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Catalan, and how the words are so similar. So you can look at the list at the same time. But it was just a really interesting book, and I had nothing better to do. So I thought, well, no one's going to watch this video. I'll make a video on this book that I like, and it's got 1.5 million views. So you never.
Mm.
People are trying to work out the YouTube algorithm, and if this magic, this secret sauce to get views and traction on YouTube, but it's very difficult to predict. I never imagined that, and it works the other way around. Recently, I do a lot of research for these videos, for these historical videos, and I spent like a month researching Shakespeare and the influence of Shakespeare uh, on the English language, and I read some Shakespeare, watched some books, and read some more books, and made a video about it. And there was just there's crickets, nobody watching it. I had
Mm.
a few thousand, which is not very high. So yeah, it's very unpredictable. So just do what you like at the end of the day. I think rather than trying to game the algorithm, just do what you enjoy.
I think that's a good conclusion. Yeah, I mean, I've always imagined kind of the analogy of having like a handful of darts and just throwing them all at the dartboard. And yeah, some of them will hit, and you'll get like a really good video, and some will miss, and you don't really know what's going to do well. It's
I,
just it seems
I
like
think
chance.
so. Some of them miss the dartboard entirely, and hit your girlfriend or whatever, your butler or whatever,
I
whoever
think we
you
have very
got.
different lives then.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, well, I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you today, and I thought the best thing that I've again kind of following what I'm interested in is just looking at some of your videos that stand out to me, kind of at random almost, and just asking you some things that you found through those videos or some of your opinions, maybe like expanding on some points from some of
Okay,
them. So it's a
okay.
little bit random, but maybe it might also give people a nice preview of the kind of content you cover, perhaps as well.
I like random, so
Um,
that's good.
cool. One thing that comes up a lot is, especially recently, I've seen is influence on English from other languages and cultures. Like I think you did one. Oh, I know you've done one on like Celtic influence,
Mm,
American
yeah,
influence,
yeah, yeah,
um, all these kind of things. Asian influence too. That was very interesting. I was,
yeah.
my wife is Chinese. I was telling her you mentioned chop chop comes
Chop chop.
from Cantonese, I
Yeah,
think, and
yeah. Quickly.
yeah, she had no idea. So I was able to teach her something as well. So that was a good one.
Chopsticks too, by the way.
Hmm.
Chopsticks,
Chopsticks, yeah, it's the
nothing
same
to do
chop,
with
I
chopping.
guess.
I always thought it was to do with chopping. No, they're quick sticks.
Yeah,
Apparently, that's the story.
although it's slower than a fork, so it doesn't at
Exactly.
least for
Yeah,
a Westerner. Yeah.
it's quicker than your hand, maybe. I don't know. Or it's quicker than. Yeah.
But I was quite interested in the one with American English because that's, I feel like, ongoing now a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, what's your view on that? Do you feel like, I don't know, is British English slowly disappearing and turning into American English, or is that too extreme to say?
I don't think so. No, I think they influence each other. Of course, American is just sort of uh, the the bigger one, so we get a lot of influence from the media too. But if you read online, there are a lot of, because of the internet, a lot of British words that are now used in the US. So it works both ways, and I don't know, it still sounds different, and we use different words, but we're mutually, intelligible. So I don't know well, let me ask your opinion. I mean, what would you say? You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll be speaking the same English in the future. Again, I asked the question, but I don't believe it. But I don't know. I do feel like a lot of Britishisms are disappearing. Like for my whole life, I've pronounced it as schedule. And until I started teaching English, I didn't know that that was the American version, and I still can't get out of the
It's
habit.
okay. It's all right. You're forgiven. Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, schedule's original English version, but language changes. It's not a museum where we're looking at. Language is constantly changing, and if people pronounce it schedule, that's fine. That's fine by me. I'm still saying schedule, but that's why I grew up saying that.
It does sound
Yeah.
very British. It sounds, dare I say, more sophisticated, maybe. But
I must say, there are some Americanisms that I prefer because they're more logical, like sidewalk, for example,
mhm, mhm,
because you walk on the side. It's a sidewalk. Whereas pavement, what does it mean? It's just like the material, isn't it? To the
mhm,
pavement.
mhm,
It's just
mhm.
the material that you're walking on, which is not very interesting. So sometimes the American words are more descriptive. So yeah, big it up
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the Americans.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you next. If you prefer any American terms, and I think sidewalk is one I find using myself using a lot here
Yeah.
in Bangkok because I mean it's international English kind of, and people understand it more. But yeah, it does kind of make more sense. And
It,
there's a few that I don't like sneakers, for example, and things like that. Just seem
it,
a bit
it
weird to
sounds like
me.
you're sneaking.
Yeah, why Americans always sneaking everywhere? Like, why do they need to sneak?
But I think with sneakers, I think even in Britain, it's regional, isn't it? Because I say trainers. Do you say trainers or do you say
Trainers,
pumps or
yeah, yeah.
something? You say trainers, okay? Because I think up north they say pumps, don't they? Is that right?
Really? Oh,
Maybe
that
not.
to me that
Yeah.
sounds like a young person thing, but I don't know. Maybe they do. I haven't spent
Okay.
much time up north.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. How about when it comes to English learners? Uh, as a teacher, do you recommend they focus on just one dialect, like only English? Sorry, only British or only American, or do you think it's a good idea to mix both when they're learning to start with?
I think it doesn't. Personally, I think it doesn't matter. Just it is the same language. It was very different then, maybe, but we're
Yeah.
talking about uh, some vocabulary differences, and you probably need to learn both anyway. And the grammar, it's virtually the same, some very small differences. So I said just learn the language. I do remember a guy called me who was a complete beginner. He wanted to come to our language school to learn English, and he said, well, we're so where are the teachers from? So I'm British. My colleagues actually at the moment is British too. Sometimes with American teachers. Well, no, I want to learn American English. But I did, if you're a complete beginner, it makes absolutely no difference. And if
Mhm.
you're intermediate, advanced, you can learn it yourself. The differences. I mean, the exception is if you want to be an actor or if you're going to an American university, maybe you want to focus on one and the other. But generally, I think it really doesn't matter at all. What's your you're a teacher too, Michael? What do you think?
I honestly hadn't given it much thought before, but I think I agree. Like that in some areas, I always think there's some kind of weird specific areas where there's a lot of differences, like in the kitchen, driving and cars. Like it seems like every part of a car has a different word in American and British English.
Yeah.
Baby stuff as well, like nappy, diaper,
Hmm.
pacifier,
Hmm.
dummy. Like there's all these like very specific areas. There's a lot. So I guess if you're learning like one specific area, like maybe you're going to have a baby and you want to learn all these baby words, then maybe focus on one so you're not
Yeah.
learning two of every word or mixing them up. But yeah, I think generally, even if you like a lot of my students, they'll mix American and English in one sentence,
Right.
and I think who no matter who you are, you can still understand
Yeah.
the mixture. It's not like it
Well, I do
sounds
that
really
too.
strange.
I say sidewalk sometimes, so
Yeah.
I sometimes say elevator. Even the teachers mix them up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, elevator's another good example. It's very logical, and lift. What is that? It's a verb. Is it noun? Like it's less. It can be less
Yeah.
clear
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some cases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, one last idea. Maybe we kind of touched on this already, but I'm really interested in like the future of language, kind of more broadly.
Hmm.
Just for fun, I like to think about what's going to happen, in 100 years or 500 years, like very far down the line, um, because languages are always borrowing from each other and changing, as you said. So I don't know if you thought about this before, but do you have any predictions on the future of English? We could say, and like, will it just become one big language, or will it continue to get different? Or any ideas there?
I think it's very difficult to predict. I wish I knew. I think there'd be more borrowings, as you say, maybe from other languages, as the world is more interconnected. But where it's going to be in a few hundred years, even tomorrow or next week, I, I'm afraid I don't have a good answer for that. I'm afraid not. I don't know. No, time will tell.
Fair enough. I mean, maybe I spend a bit too much time thinking about like distant future. It's not really that helpful,
Yeah,
but
I can answer more questions more easily about the past rather than the future. I think, like most people, but yeah, I think it's very difficult to tell. Yeah.
okay, well, we can go back to the past then. That maybe makes more sense. So, uh, like from an English learner's perspective, why do you think it is important, or do you think it's important to learn these origins and like learn the etymology of words?
Uh, Yeah, it depends on the person, but generally, yes. For someone like me, I mean, I said I've got quite an analytical mind, and I know that people learn a language through stories. So once again, returning to idioms, if you're learning idioms in English, we use a lot of idioms, and if you know the story behind them, you're going to remember it much easier than just a random phrase. So yeah, I would say, but I think it just some people are interested in that kind of thing, and others they're not. So it does go down to the individual. But I love it. I was interested in etymology. I always want to know where the things come from, why we say it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And I don't know if you've had this before, but sometimes I feel like a learner and a native speaker, they have a different perspective on the language. So sometimes a student will mention something to me. They'll ask a question about are these two words related, and I've never considered it before, and I realize there is some connection between them, and it's so obvious afterwards. I love those kind of moments of realization where you can figure out the connection.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I live in France, and learning French, you suddenly understand a lot of English words better. Ah, that's what it means. That's the
Ah,
origin of the word. Okay, because it means something different slightly different in French, or then yeah. So I think people who studied Latin or Greek or even French, then they might have like a sort of deeper understanding of where the words comes from, and it might help with not just learning English, but if you're you know trying to learn another European language, I'm sure it helps. And learning the etymology will help because it's all tied together. As returning to that book that I was talking about earlier, The Loom of Language. So they're all
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah, we'll have to send more people to that video to find out. But
Uh,
I mean, sorry,
yeah,
go
you
ahead.
can find the book online. I think you can find if you don't need to buy a copy, but yeah, you can find it somewhere online. I think.
Nice. I'll check it out. I
Like,
hadn't heard of
yeah,
it before.
no, it's good. It's good.
Do you have a favorite word or idiom origin story? There want any that come to mind that you quite like?
A few. The one I often talk about is Scott, to get off scot free, and
Ah,
it's always baffled me who Scott is. I don't know if you do. Do you know the origin of that
no
one?
idea. No,
No. Have you ever wondered who's this guy Scott? That he's
no,
free. By
I
the way,
haven't.
I guess I should explain the
Oh, yeah,
meaning, shall we?
I was going to do that too. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead if you want. You explain the meaning. I'll
I'm
explain
going to mess it up
the
now, but
origin.
my
Okay.
understanding is you can kind of escape from a problem without being punished or disciplined. Like you do something bad and you escape the consequences, right?
Yeah. So Michael stole all the papaya from the market, and he was arrested. And then the judge said, "Nah, it's only papaya. Let him go." And I'm angry because I own the papaya stall. I said, "What? Michael's been let off scot free, so you're escaping without punishment for something you've done." And yeah, as I said, most people think, "Well, who's Scott?" But then you do the research and you find that Scott is actually an old word for a tax. And back
Ah,
in the day, I think we're going back. This is Scott is actually a Viking word, and you'd pay tax on the land, and if your land didn't have any water or something like that, or you were quite close to um, the sheriff, I don't know who the person in authority, you didn't have to pay the tax, you didn't have to pay the scot. So no water my land, so I'm scot free. So it means you don't have to pay the tax, scot free. So that's the origin. I mean, if you look in Swedish or some of the Scandinavian words for tax is something like scot or scat or something like that.
oh wow.
So yeah, so it's interesting.
That's really cool. That's very good to know. And yeah, just as you said earlier, now that people have heard that, maybe they're gonna, I don't know, think about the Vikings or imagine what it's like in
Yeah,
their head, and
yeah,
it's going to be
exactly.
easier to remember. Yeah.
Exactly. Then another word, there's a word I like, and that is um, sycophant.
Hmm.
Do you know that one?
I've heard of it,
Sycophant.
but I couldn't tell you the meaning now.
So sycophant, if I just say, like all the people around Donald Trump, they're all sycophants. They're all saying how lovely Donald Trump is. Oh, you're
Mm.
so, even behind their back, they're insulting him. Oh, Donald, you're so wonderful. We love what you're saying. We agree with everything you say. So you call that person a sycophant, and it means someone who shows figs as in the fruit. And
Mm.
in ancient Greece, uh, they're not sure why, but someone who showed figs was another word for an informer, a grass, to use a familiar term, was a
Mhm.
sycophant. So, yeah, if you show your figs, you are flattering without good reason.
That's so cool. I mean, I learned a new word and a new origin today. So
Okay.
yeah, it's so
Okay.
cool when there's like a story behind it too. There's
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
that'll help. Again, if you're learning the vocabulary, that'll help you remember it. So,
Yeah,
always a good
yeah, for
reason for
sure.
learning the etymology. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one that I heard, I've actually been planning for like months to make a video about kind of interesting etymologies. Um, I'm kind of slowly making a
Hmm.
list, but
Looking
I,
forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
I
Yeah.
haven't I haven't
Tell me
found
more.
good ones for a while. But one of
Okay.
them I can mention now is blessing. Do you know the origin of blessing?
Oh, no. Tell me more.
So it's only in my notes here. It's a very brief sentence, so I can't tell you too much. But apparently, it comes from the Anglo-Saxon word for blood, and it's like
Ah,
it kind of means this is what I heard. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna edit something in here just to correct myself. But I
okay.
think this is right. it kind of means like there's no good thing comes without sacrifice or without blood. So in order to get a blessing,
Mm.
you need to spill blood, like sacrifice. So
Ah, okay,
something
okay.
about that led to the word we use today, which is really interesting and also violent.
Fascinating. Yeah, yeah, fascinating. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll expect to see that in your next video.
Yeah, I'll steal it, claim it as my own. Yeah.
um, how about modern English? Like we've already spoken a bit about how it's changing a lot these days, and obviously internet slang and stuff like that is affecting English. Like, is there any? I mean, you don't seem to me like a prescriptivist. You seem quite open to the change, but is there any aspect of modern English or new words that you dislike?
I am more of a descriptivist. That's a difficult word to say. However, sometimes I just need to breathe deeply and keep calm when I see certain things and say, no, it's okay. It's okay. Language evolves. You have to accept it. There's one, I don't know if it's related to the internet, but there's one thing that does, I don't want to say annoy me, that's the wrong word, but I just, I find it difficult to keep my sang-froid, my to keep calm, and that is the misuse of the word beloved and the mispronunciation as
Mm,
beloved, because beloved is an adjective. My beloved friend, my beloved aunt, sadly passed away. Okay, but it keeps being used as a verb, like saying. He was beloved by everybody in the community. But no, why do you need to have the be? Loved is the verb. He was loved by everyone in the community. Why did you stick an extra bit on it? It's not necessary. It's no. He was loved by everybody. So yeah, I don't know why that one gets my goat. I use another expression which makes me angry, but it does. I'd love to hear your if you have any words like that, anything that gets your goat.
yeah, I mean, I have a couple. I was just going to ask you because I don't think I know. So the pronunciation "beloved" is that always incorrect? You know,
It's
it's
always
always
incorrect.
"beloved." Okay.
Beloved, it's beloved, my beloved friend, my learned friend as well.
Mm,
When you're using learned as an adjective, it's pronounced like that. It doesn't follow the rules of the, past of the verb pronunciation because it's not a verb. So it's learned, blessed, wicked, and beloved because they're not from any verb.
that makes sense
There's
now.
no
Now
verb
I see
to
the
beloved.
pattern.
There's no verb to belove,
Uh-huh.
is there? No.
Yeah, that's true.
No.
I think a lot of
Looking at the camera. No, there isn't. There isn't. There is no verb to belove.
remember everyone. Remember.
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Yeah.
I do think a lot of English learners will be quite relieved by that because they might be, you know, why do we pronounce it invited but we don't say loved? And in this case, you do say beloved. So I mean, in this case, it might
Yeah.
be
We say
nicer.
I'm sure you've heard in your classes that people's saying naked instead of naked.
Mhm.
Because they see ed and they assume it's following these rules of past tense pronunciation. But no, if it's an adjective, it doesn't follow the rules. So yeah,
Yeah.
naked, rugged, blessed, etc., and beloved.
Yeah. I was going to say I don't want to ask why people are saying naked in your class, but I'll leave that
Oh
there.
yeah, so I say blessed, but there's two. There's verb. There's blessed and there's blessed. Now I'm
Right.
making things complicated because one is a verb and one is the adjective. So yes,
So
blessed.
that is kind of not an exception, but it is an
Complicating.
additional word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, there's a few. I think they are again Americanisms that come to mind. Like one that I'm sure you're aware of. You know, we would say I couldn't care less, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
Yeah,
people
absolutely. Yeah,
say,
yeah,
I think I don't know if it's a mistake or if it's like an accepted American usage, but I could care less,
yeah, I'm
which
nodding in agreement here. Yeah. It's one of
it
those
seems
that
like
I
it
have
should be
to,
the
like,
opposite.
take a deep breath and do some yoga or something to keep my calm. Yeah, I could care less means you do, yeah, whatever. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
I don't. get it. But yeah, the meaning is the same, even though it shouldn't be.
It makes
Another
no
one.
sense. Yeah.
This might annoy you as because I presume you're learning French, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In English we say en route, which I presume comes from French. I don't
Hmm.
really speak
Hmm.
French. But I hear Americans always saying en route, en
En
route.
route. I've not heard that
Yeah.
one.
Ah.
I thought
I
that
don't know if
might be
they'd
something
spell
to
it
do with
with an.
vegetables, but
Hmm.
en route. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Don't
I'm not
know.
sure if they're spelling with it with an E or an I, but at least when they say it, they say en route, and it always slightly annoys me. Like it should be on.
I understand. Usually, either say I'm on the way or I'm en route, but don't mix up the English and the French. So yeah, I'm with you on that one too.
Good, nice. Maybe now I've mentioned it, you might hear it everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Unfortunately.
Mm. Well, the other kind of like abruptly jumping to another topic. One other video that I really enjoyed because I also think a lot of learners will find this useful too is binomials. Am I pronouncing that right? Binomials.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you that because I say binomials. I think some people say binomials, and I
Hmm.
think maybe I've been getting it wrong all the time. So don't listen to me as an English teacher. But
Not.
I've always been saying binomials, but probably not. Probably I'm
That
wrong.
sounds right to me. Like not nominal. I don't know. Like other.
Yeah, exactly,
Anyway,
exactly. Not it's nominal. So why binomial? I
I've
don't know.
never said that word in my life before until just now, to be honest. But
Okay.
it's an interesting thing because I mean maybe you can explain it better than me. But there's often like pairs of words in English that come together. Some of them might be idiomatic, and even if they're not, they are usually said in the same order, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
would fish and chips be a binomial? Would that be an example, or is that not idiomatic enough?
Um, I think so because you wouldn't say chip and fish,
Yeah,
chips
that
and
sounds
fish.
weird.
But that's an interesting. Let me ask you a question though, because like another one, salt and pepper, not pepper and salt. But if your student, this is always says pepper and salt, do you correct them or not? Because it's perfectly correct. Everyone understands what you, but it's not so. What's the word? Idiomatic. Most people would say salt and pepper. So is it a mistake or not? I don't know. I tend not to correct it and let it go. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I've had students before who have been like really, really advanced, high level, and they just say, be really brutal, correct everything. With those students, I would, but I generally no. I mean, maybe if they said
Yeah.
chips and fish, I might because if someone said that to me, I'd take a second to think about what they actually are talking about because it's just so unusual.
But it's perfectly correct, but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
correct at the same time. There's this grey area in language learning, isn't there? Well, that's correct. Why should I correct it? But why you? What's wrong with chips and fish? That's what it is. No, but that's what we say. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
suppose it's like two things that go together, and they're so merged together. It almost becomes its own word.
exactly.
Like fish and chips is like one word, isn't it? Almost.
Well, not everything is white and black in language learning.
Black and white.
Yeah, black. Yes, if you're listening, black and white is what we say. Yeah. That's
Well, my,
another
my
another
idea here,
example of a binomial. Yeah. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
my idea was basically to I can't remember actually. These might be some that you mentioned in the video, and maybe some that I think actually that they all you mentioned in your video about this. I was
Okay.
going to pick a couple that I liked and ask you some questions using them.
Okay.
So one of them you mentioned is sink or swim,
Yeah.
um, which I guess we could explain each one as well. Like that's
Mhm. Mhm.
when you're in a situation where you either succeed or fail, but no in between. Is that right?
Yeah. You're picked up and thrown into the deep end of the thrown into the river, and either you swim or you drown. So that's the literal meaning, but used figuratively, a situation where you're going to fail or you succeed. One or the other. There's no middle ground, and
Yeah,
there are risks
high
in life
risk.
that you take in life that put you in that situation.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can all relate to this if we think. But yeah, thinking might be the hardest one now. So no pressure if you can't think of an example. But have you ever been in a sink or swim moment, either maybe in your teaching career or personal life or whatever comes to mind?
You know, when you say no pressure, you put me under a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
Like,
probably makes it worse, doesn't it?
yeah, I got an example. I do have an example. When I just graduated from university, uh, this relates to my first ever English language teaching job. But just after I graduated, a long time ago, I won't say when exactly, um, I went home from Leeds. Went to University of Leeds. I went staying with my mum, and I got a terrible job as a filing clerk, the first job I could have to sort of get some money in. And I hated my job, and I kind of hated my life. And I thought, I've got to get out of here. I didn't have much money, but I thought, I've got to do this. I've got to go. So I had a friend teaching in Italy, and he was teaching English. He said, "Well, you should teach English," but I didn't want to go to Italy because he was going to Italy. I thought I'd go to Spain. So I just got a few £100, enough to last like 2 or 3 weeks, and a one-way ticket to Madrid with no job, no experience. And I just hopped on the flight, and I thought, well, I got a couple of weeks to find something here, and I got a job. And that's how I
Nice.
started. First place. I didn't realize how desperate they were for English teachers in Madrid at that time. But the first place I went into offered me a job. Even though I had zero experience, zero qualifications, I got a job, and I stayed there for a couple of years. So that's how it all started. It really was sink or swim, though, because I could have
Yeah.
just failed and gone back with my head between my knees. Is that the word? Is that the expression?
Between my legs, right? Between my legs.
Head between my legs? I don't know. Yeah, head between my legs. Tail between my arse.
Tail between my legs, right? Like a dog.
Tail between my legs. That was my sink or swim moment.
Yeah, and you swam. So that's
I
good.
swam. Worked out. If I would never take such a risk now, to be honest. Maybe I don't need to, but it seemed like the only thing I could do at the time.
Yeah, I think your younger years that's when you take these sink or swim decisions, right? That's the time to do it. Yeah.
Have you had such an experience?
I knew you'd ask me that, and I should have prepared something.
You should have. You asked me the question.
Nothing that is as like good an example as yours. I think that's the perfect example. But the one that came to mind is I did work for a few months in Weatherspoons.
Yeah.
Anyone who has been to the UK will know Weatherspoons is a pub chain, a very famous, popular pub chain in the UK. And yeah, I was put in the kitchen, and it was really sink or swim because I had no instructions. It's like, okay, here you go in the kitchen, cook the meals, and I'd see the orders on screen, but no one told me what to do. So I kind of had to just
Did you know how to
figure out
cook?
and try my best. I mean, it's Weatherspoons. There's not much cooking. It's mostly microwaving, so it's not really like difficult.
Okay. It doesn't
But
come as a surprise somehow that Weatherspoons has that.
But I did have the feeling that I was, as you said, dropped in the deep end of the pool, and okay, now swim, survive, and it was probably the most stressful job I've ever had. I really hated it.
Really, really.
Yeah, I didn't last long.
Okay.
Okay, well, I don't know, maybe we don't have much time for many of them, but one of them I want to get to is again and again, again and again, repeatedly, something that happens many times. As a teacher, is there something that you see students doing again and again, like a mistake maybe, that kind of drives you a bit crazy or frustrates you in some way?
That's a good question. Not a mistake. I would just say that what I see, the only thing I don't like is when people give up too quickly. They don't become fluent fluent in English within a fortnight. So that's 2 weeks, by the way. and they feel like they want to give up. And I see a lot of people who underestimate the amount of work involved, and they feel, no, language is not for me, learning English is not for me, it's not working. So I see that again and again, people just uh, giving up too easily when they should persist. I guess it's the job of the teacher to enthuse them, to encourage them. So yeah, that's our job as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's why it's so frustrating because, I mean, I can speak for myself. Like, yeah, I sometimes feel like my job is to motivate, and when I do see someone giving up or not feeling motivated, I
Yeah.
almost feel like I failed in some way, and it's frustrating. But maybe it's a reflection of me rather than them. I don't know.
I think so. I think the language industry is based on failure as well. Like most people who start a language don't reach a good level. I think that's true of English or any other language. So we're working where yeah, most people, we're working in an environment where most people will fail. So yeah, and that can be discouraging. But there are some people who do give up too easily. But we need to motivate them, as you said, encourage them. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. I like the answer. Um, I again, I haven't thought of one for myself, but uh, so here's a small one. Again, I would never complain about my students, of course, but one that I find myself correcting again and again. I do a lot of writing corrections online. Is punctuation. It's not maybe the most important thing unless
Hmm.
you're doing a lot of writing in your learning, but uh, just some. I think I don't know if other languages do this, but like a lot of my students, I'll see they put spaces on both sides of punctuation, like before and after the full stop, rather than just after.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I always just leave a comment like, by the way, we only put a space after, so no need to, kind of a gentle reminder. And I see it again and again. So I don't know if it's a mistake or if it's something that other languages do, but that's just one thing that came to mind. Again, it doesn't annoy me. I'll never say that, but it's something I've noticed.
Well, firstly, I must confess I'm not very good at punctuation myself. I'm always getting my
Mm.
commas in the wrong place or whatever, splitting my commas and full stops. So sometimes I get it wrong myself. But I could say I don't see the point, but that would be
Mm.
that's kind of a joke. But, by the way, um, from French, by the way, if you're learning French, I didn't know this till recently. Um, yeah, if you put a question mark, it's always space question mark or space exclamation mark. So I have to correct that sometimes. It's not a big deal, but yeah. So if you've got any French
Interesting.
students, that's what they do.
Yes, yeah. I think I do have a few French, and maybe that's why. That's really
Not the
interesting.
full
That's good to
stop.
know.
Not the same, but the yeah,
Okay.
question marks and
Ah.
exclamation marks. Yeah, a few differences.
Yeah. Again, if you're texting, it doesn't matter, right? But maybe if you're writing a job application, it might
Yeah,
look a bit
yeah,
unprofessional.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sure.
Oh, interesting. I think another one is it French. They do this. I know some European languages where, um, in like a large number, in English we put commas to separate the number, but some languages they put full stops. Is that
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's
Yeah. Where
confusing when you've got to make a transfer and you transfer to Amazon to buy a cable or whatever it is, 5,000 euros instead of €5 or something. So so you got to
speaking
be
from experience.
careful. Yeah, because it's the reverse. Yeah, yeah. It's a full stop is where the comma is in English. In I think that's in French and Spanish and some European languages. Yeah. So I always have to say, look at it very carefully, and I'm doing it right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if people don't quite know what we're talking about on YouTube, I'll put on the screen just here
Mm.
somewhere what we mean. Maybe one more now. You also mentioned by leaps and bounds, which is a nice phrase I don't often use, but I think it just means by a lot, large
Yeah,
amount, right?
yeah, yeah.
By leaps and bounds. Uh, so maybe you could talk about your personal life or your work life. What area have you developed recently by leaps and bounds?
Oh, I'm more of an small incremental steps kind of guy, I should say, Michael, rather than improving by leaps and bounds.
Mm.
Nevertheless, I'll try and answer your question. Leaps and bounds, I don't know. The only thing I can think of where I've improved a lot is making videos on YouTube, the delivery, because I may seem relaxed and calm and comfortable being filmed right now. But I'm a deeply introverted person at heart. And if you watch the first videos where I'm talking to the camera, I'm like a sort of piece of wood with my feet in concrete. You know, hello, I'm just so nervous. And all I can say is that, like most things in life, you improve by doing. If you do a lot, so now I'm okay in front of the camera. So I've improved that by leaps and bounds. That's the only thing I can think of right now. But I'm not generally a leaps and bounds person. I just think like slowly, step by step, small incremental steps. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, leaps and bounds, it doesn't have to be like a quick improvement, does it? So maybe comparing to 8 years ago, you can say you've improved by leaps and bounds. So maybe day by day it's incremental, but over time it's a big change, right?
Yeah, I think I give an example. The neighbor, a few years ago, she was a teenager. She was 14 or 15, and she came up and she knew 2 words of English. And now she's 18 or 19. Wow, she's like completely fluent. And
That's amazing.
so, wow, you've improved your English by leaps and bounds. Yeah. So that's an example I can think of.
Nice. And yeah, I would say the same, exactly the same. Like I still feel like I've got some way to go, but if we were recording this episode, 5 years ago, I probably would have to cut. There'd be like an edit in every other sentence because I'd be pausing to think for 30 seconds, or I'd forget my where I was going. So more or less, I can talk for an hour without stopping too much. So I think in that sense, I've also improved in leaps and bounds too. It's again, as you said, it's just practice, isn't it?
You said to me that you were learning Thai language. Has it improved by leaps and bounds?
You're asking me?
Yes.
It certainly has not. No.
Okay.
I think compared to the average, foreigner here, the average expat, maybe it's good because most people here know nothing. But outside of ordering a coffee and asking for directions, I'm kind of useless, really.
Okay. Well,
But yeah,
next time.
Yeah.
You still have time.
Yes, for sure. Hopefully. But I mean, maybe we can leave it there. There's a few more, but I think now might be a good stopping point. So before we finish up, would you like to mention once more about your YouTube channel, and maybe there's other places you'd like to send people as well?
Well, the YouTube channel is a good place to start. So yeah, Let Them Talk TV. If you're learning English, I do have about 200 or so videos on grammar, vocabulary. I've got lots of stuff about etymology and the history of English. All fascinating stuff, I'm sure you'll find. Yeah. Well, that's all. More to come.
Perfect. And yeah, I can say I highly recommend your channel. Also, you do speak very clearly. It's very easy to follow, I think, for learners. So that's another benefit.
Good.
As well. Well, thank you so much. It's kind of just been. It's felt like I've been talking to a friend rather than a podcast interview.
Me too.
Which has been really nice. So yeah, thank you for your time, and maybe we'll do it again at some point.
Yeah, we're face to face next time if I'm in Thailand.
Yeah, come to Bangkok. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Thanks so much.
Okay, my pleasure.
You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast, and I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.